A reading from the Gospel of John. Jesus said, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not let them be afraid. You heard me say to you, I am going away, and I am coming to you. If you loved me, you would rejoice that I am going to the Father, because the Father is greater than I. And now I have told you this before it occurs, so that when it does occur, you may believe. I will no longer talk much with you, for the ruler of this world is coming. He has no power over me, but I do as the Father has commanded me, so that the world may know that I love the Father. Rise, let us be on our way." As we move through Eastertide towards the Ascension and then the great day of Pentecost, we find Jesus in valedictory mode in these passages from the fourth Gospel that are often called the Supper Discourses. In John's Gospel, we find these rather lengthy, complicated speeches which, if I'm honest, might have done rather better with a slightly more focused editor, speeches in which Jesus talks about his relationship to the Father and the gift of the Spirit, the Comforter, that will be sent by the Father to the world once Jesus has left the world. It's disconcerting stuff, and as I say, it's not entirely well edited. "Rise," said Jesus, "let us be on our way," except that they don't go anywhere, because that's at the end of John 14, and Jesus then goes into another rather longer speech that occupies all of John 15 and 16. But the point, despite the clumsy editing, the point is clear, that Jesus is going to go away, and that is for the benefit, not the pain of the world. It is good news that Jesus is going away, because that will lead to a new era where in Jesus' place and empowered by the Spirit, the church is going to do things, greater things, Jesus says at another point in this passage, greater things than we might have ever imagined, greater things than he has done himself. And that's because there's more than one of us. That's why we need to have peace, which is the central theme, perhaps, of that little snippet we heard. I give you peace, says Jesus, but it's the Star Trek kind of peace, not as we know it, Jim. It's Jesus' form of peace, and it needs a bit of explanation, which is why he goes on to say, don't let your hearts be troubled. Normally, peace isn't that troubling a condition. Jesus is talking about the peace that comes from the knowledge that we are doing God's will. But that doesn't always endear us to the world around us. Sometimes doing God's will requires just a bit of courage, because it is very often something which is countercultural. It was in biblical times. The stories of the Hebrew scriptures are full of the prophets standing up to people in authority and telling them they've got it wrong and that they are not doing God's will. It's true in the age of the New Testament. Jesus' own fate and that of his followers. Look at what happens to many of the disciples. Look at what happens to St. Paul. And it's been true throughout history, right down to our own age and our own country. It takes courage to listen to what the Spirit is saying and to act on it. But be of comfort, Jesus says. Do not let your hearts be troubled, because actually there is something bigger and greater and more wonderful and more powerful than you can possibly imagine, and that is behind you and with you and empowering you. Jesus sent people out to change the world, and does so still today. There's no promise that it's going to be easy, but there is a great promise that if we listen to the promptings of the Spirit, if we listen to the call that God has given us, then we will understand more clearly and fully the knowledge of God's love. And that changes everything. So my friends, do not let your hearts be troubled. Let's enjoy God's peace that Jesus offers us, and let's go change the world. Amen.